Today we will look at First Chronicles 23 through 27. But first, today is Memorial Day here in the United States of America, a day that is dedicated to the honor and remembrance of those who gave their lives in service to our country, this United States of America. And on this day also, typically we always remember all of those who have died, and we put flowers and different things on the graves of all of our loved ones. But I don't think that really takes away from the true meaning of Memorial Day. Veterans Day is for all who have served, living and deceased. Armed Forces Day is a day we recognize all who are currently serving in our military. And today, we do sometimes get confused a little bit, but it is to honor and remember those who gave their lives, in service to our country. And I remember thinking yesterday, not only of World War II and World War I, the ones that come to mind, but, there was a war in Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan and, so many others. Going back to the Civil War and before that to the War of Independence. This year is our 250th anniversary of freedom, as our country. Yeah, and I think it's important that we remember our freedoms. And we have a freedom to protest as well, but some of the protesting I think that gets done is just not what it should be, and the way it should be done. But to peacefully protest is one thing, but regardless, that's all beside the point of today. Today is a day we remember. And I remember a day when I was growing up that some military people came into my little hometown, and the sorrow that was because of that. And I'm a member of the Sons of the Legion of the Carl Boostrom Post 160 in McHenry, and the posts are named after men, women who have died in service to their countries. And it's an important day to sit back and to remember and to honor them. And today I am privileged to give the opening prayer and benediction at our services, and to be the bugler in our honor squad. So today that has always been important in my family. My dad was a tail gunner on a B-17. They flew 35 missions in World War II, and I remember growing up and seeing all of the veterans on Veterans Day in their uniforms and dressed as they were for the remembrance and that ceremony. So it's just, a day to give thanks. I truly believe it's a day to give thanks for all of those who died, not just for our freedom, but for the freedom of many throughout the world. So we'll look briefly at these chapters, 23 through 27, 5 chapters today, and the good thing is that it's a lot of names, a lot of genealogy, a lot of history that way. And I'm not going to get too deep into a lot of it. But, it begins with, verse 1 of chapter 23. So when David was old and full of his days, he made his son Solomon king over Israel. And if we remember when we were reading, back in Kings, that after King David died, there was, another son that claimed the kingship. Well, that's beside the point here, but we know that, Solomon was the one that does become the king. And he gathers all the leaders of Israelites, the priests and the Levites. And the Levites, it says, were numbered from the age of 30. That there were 38,000 of them. So there were enough Levites over the age of 30 to do the priestly duties. And these priests were divided into 4 groups, so they weren't all on duty all of the time, but they had time off, time with their families and all of that. And normally, age 25 was, the designated age for a male to then begin to serve his priestly duties. And one of the things that the priests did in verse 13 was to give the holy blessing in his name forever. And those are familiar words from Numbers chapter 6. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you with grace and mercy. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. That is the priestly greeting, the priestly blessing, the Aaronic. It comes from Aaron. Aaron was the first one that spoke those words back in Numbers chapter 6. And I spoke those words twice yesterday, once at Mabel and once at Our Savior's. And it's a reminder that, that God is with us, that God watches over us, we have blessings from God. And so this priestly blessing was given in his name forever. And so we still continue to use that. And I think that's important to remember that. Chapter 24, the sons of Levi by their father's house. Here they count from the age of 20. So evidently there weren't quite so many in this clan. So they had to count the priests beginning at age 20 rather than at age 30, as you saw as we read in verse 3. And in difference to the normal age of 25 rather. But David was getting the divisions of the Levites, the priestly duties and everything. And those divisions continue in chapter 24. It says, these are the divisions of the sons of Aaron. And the sons, Aaron was the brother of Moses. And he is the forefather, the ancestor then of all of those that would become priests, the Levites. The Levites were descendants of Levi, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, so it comes all the way down through those paths that way. And chapter 24 continues with, like in verse 4, there were more leaders found of the sons of Eleazar than of the sons of Ithamar. I mean, some families were bigger than others, and that's, and they're kind of allocated that way. And in verse 7, the first lot fell to Jehoiada, the second lot, so there were rankings, and again within the divisions of, you're on duty now and you're on duty then, and all of these different divisions and things that come about. And verse 20 of chapter 24 talks of the other Levites, the rest of the sons of Levi, and so they're all within there. And I mean, there's so many names that, I look at them and again, I can't even pronounce them, and I just, kind of skim over them very often. Chapter 25, David and the captains of the army separated for the service some of the musicians, because as the Israelites went to battle, they had musicians with them. They would have, the call to arms, and that's, with the, we have an electronic bugle that I will blow, and it's, I don't have to blow it, I just push a button, but, it blows taps. And then it also has reveille on it, and so it's just like with these Israelites, with their armies, they had different melodies that would call them to arms and that would rally the forces, or that would signify we need help, or all of these different things. And the reveille, that's, time to get up in the morning. And so there were musicians that were attached to the army, and there were musicians that were attached, or maybe I don't know if that's really the right word, but designated for the worship, in the tabernacle, and many different leaders, and all of that of the musicians. And in verse 8 again, they cast lots for their duties, the small as well as the great, the teacher with the student. And so it was, each had a responsibility that way. Chapter 26 deals with gatekeepers. I guess I'm not quite sure what the gatekeepers did. You know, they guarded the entrances and made sure that things were in order and everything. But, you know, the gatekeepers were of the Korahites, and they had their specific duties as well. Verse 20 of chapter 26 starts to deal with the treasuries and their duty. You know, those that were in charge of not only counting the money, but paying the bills and taking care of all of those issues that way, to make sure that there were funds available to purchase what's needed and, you know, to make those purchases. You know, it was, and I think about that as I was thinking earlier this morning about, you know, as I said, my dad was in the Air Force and he was stationed in England, and I think about the support group that had to be there and all of the supplies that had to be arranged. And so these people with the treasury had many duties. Chapter 27 deals with military divisions and leaders of tribes and other state officials. Again, an accounting of the people. And that's an accounting of the people, and the genealogy, again, was very important to this Jewish nation.